My new neighbor freaked out over my garden and called the cops on me for it. Things didn't go her way. If you enjoy the video, hit the like and subscribe buttons and turn on the bell notifications. Okay, so here's what actually happened. I've been a resident of this peaceful suburban neighborhood for many years, and it's always been a place of quiet harmony. My personal contribution to this tranquility has been through my garden. I've always found solace in nurturing my array of flowers, which include a vibrant mix of roses, tulips, and daisies. These flowers not only beautify my yard, but also bring a sense of communal pride to our street as many neighbors have followed suit, cultivating their own patches of greenery. However, this harmony was disrupted with the arrival of Mrs. Hargrove, a woman in her late 50s with a rather stern disposition. Initially, I attempted to extend a neighborly hand, but it quickly became evident that Mrs. Hargrove preferred to keep to herself. I respected her preference for privacy, but it wasn't long before she began voicing complaints about various aspects of the neighborhood, particularly targeting my garden. Her grievances ranged from the supposedly overly vibrant colors of my flowers to the natural bird sounds they attracted. Initially, I dismissed these as the usual adjustments any new resident might express. However, the situation escalated when she vehemently objected to my garden on the grounds of her alleged bee allergy, claiming it posed a health risk to her. I tried to reason with her, explaining the ecological importance of bees, but my explanations fell on deaf ears. Mrs. Hargrove's attitude was unnerving, but I never anticipated the extent to which she would take her grievances. One weekend, she approached me with an ultimatum, demanding that I remove my flowers or face consequences. Unbeknownst to me, this confrontation was merely the prelude to a series of events that would soon escalate beyond a mere neighborly dispute. The situation with Mrs. Hargrove escalated one Tuesday morning, a development that I was wholly unprepared for. As I was tending to my garden, she approached me, her demeanor more agitated than ever. In her hands, she clutched a folder, which she brandished as though it were a weapon. With a mix of anger and triumph, she informed me that she had filed an official complaint against my garden with the local authorities, labeling it a public nuisance and a health hazard due to her allergies. Before I could process this information, she added almost gleefully that she had called the police and they were on their way to address the issue. I was dumbfounded. It seemed ludicrous that a small residential garden could provoke such an extreme response. Yet, there I was standing in my yard, awaiting the arrival of law enforcement over what I considered to be a harmless hobby. The police arrived shortly thereafter, and it quickly became apparent that they were as perplexed by the call as I was. Mrs. Hargrove wasted no time in presenting her case, passionately articulating her grievances and the supposed threat my garden posed to her well-being. I was given a chance to respond, and I did my best to explain the situation calmly, emphasizing the legality and innocuous nature of my gardening activities. The officers conducted a brief examination of my garden. One of them even commented positively on its appearance, noting the care and effort that had gone into its maintenance. They informed Mrs. Hargrove that there was no legal basis for her complaint, as gardening was not a violation of any city ordinance. This did not sit well with her. She became increasingly agitated, insisting that they take action. It was at this point that the situation took a dramatic turn. The officers inquired if Mrs. Hargrove had any medical documentation to support her claims of a severe allergy. She was unable to produce any such evidence, which further weakened her position. The officers began to explain the seriousness of filing false complaints and unnecessarily diverting police resources. This explanation, however, seemed to escalate her frustration rather than temper it. In an astonishing display of anger, Mrs. Hargrove stepped into my garden and began to uproot several of my flowers. The shock of seeing my garden being destroyed was profound. The police officers immediately intervened, pulling her away from the flower beds. Her resistance and continued outbursts led to her being handcuffed, a surreal end to what had started as a simple neighborhood dispute. Ultimately, Mrs. Hargrove was charged with destruction of property and filing false complaints. The incident became the talk of the neighborhood, a stark contrast to the previously undisturbed peace of our community. My intention had always been to create beauty and tranquility with my garden, not conflict. Yet, in the most unexpected way, my passion for gardening had become the center of a controversy that reverberated throughout our quiet streets. The aftermath of the incident with Mrs. Hargrove was as profound as it was unexpected. In the days following her arrest, there was a palpable sense of disbelief amongst our neighbors. The quiet street that had once been a haven of suburban tranquility was now abuzz with discussions about the confrontation. Many were sympathetic towards me, offering help to restore the garden, while others expressed concern about the extreme behavior exhibited by Mrs. Hargrove. The local community's reaction was mixed. Some residents viewed Mrs. Hargrove's actions as an overblown response to a minor issue, while others empathized with her, albeit not condoning her actions. The incident sparked a broader conversation about community living, boundaries, and respect for neighbors' choices. In a way, it served as a wake-up call, highlighting the need for better communication and understanding in our neighborhood. In the weeks that followed, I devoted myself to repairing the damage done to my garden. The physical restoration was time-consuming but therapeutic. The support of my neighbors was heartening. Many stopped by to offer assistance or just to check in. The solidarity shown by the community was a silver lining in the midst of the turmoil. However, the legal proceedings against Mrs. Hargrove were a reminder of the severity of the situation. She faced charges for her actions, and while there was a part of me that felt vindicated, there was also a sense of sadness. The court hearings were brief, and Mrs. Hargrove was found guilty of destruction of property and filing false complaints. She received a fine and a stern warning from the judge. In the courtroom, I saw a different side of her, one that seemed regretful and subdued. The incident had a lasting impact on the neighborhood's dynamics. Residents became more proactive in addressing minor disputes before they escalated. There was a renewed emphasis on community meetings and open dialogues. The incident with Mrs. Hargrove became a cautionary tale, often cited as an example of how not to handle disagreements. As for Mrs. Hargrove, our interactions post-trial were limited and strictly cordial. She kept to herself, and I respected her privacy. There were murmurs about her possibly moving away, but these never materialized. In an odd way, the whole ordeal seemed to have a sobering effect on her. She ceased her complaints and appeared to have gained a certain level of acceptance, if not appreciation, for the neighborhood's gardens. For me, the garden remained a source of joy and pride. The incident didn't dampen my passion for gardening. If anything, it reinforced the importance of this hobby in my life. It served as a stark reminder of how personal interest can sometimes clash with others' perspectives, but also of the resilience and unity that can emerge from such conflicts. The garden continued to flourish, a testament to the enduring spirit of our community and the healing power of nature. That's it for that story. Remember to leave your thoughts and opinions in the comments. See ya.